All right, we are going to fly through this really quickly. Um, the most important thing to know about different article formats is that the first sentence can distinguish what format you are writing in. So in journalism, we call the first sentence a lead. It used to be spelled LEDE because we wanted to differentiate between lead used in the printing presses, but now we call it a lead. I mean, it's always been called a lead, but you might see two different spellings. Literally, this is the first sentence. And this sentence distinguishes between an inverted pyramid style article, which we're going to call print style 1, and a feature style article, which will be print style 2. So here's an example of an inverted pyramid style newsy lead. Prominent South Carolina lawyer Alex Murdaugh has turned himself into police for allegedly ordering a hit on himself so that his son could collect $10 million in life insurance. All right, if you just read that sentence, you would know the whole story. You'd have it. There's obviously more reporting to come, but the most important information is told immediately in that first sentence. As opposed to this style, instead of a suit and tie, lawyer Alex Murdaugh found himself in a jail jumpsuit Thursday in a cramped South Carolina courtroom, struggling to wipe tears from his eyes with handcuffed wrists as his lawyer detailed how his life crumbled over the past 3 months. With this style, a feature style, we have a lot of questions. Why is he in a jumpsuit? What happened over the last 3 months? What's going on? Why is he crying, right? We have all of these questions that will later be answered in the story. But for inverted pyramid style, we tell everything up front. So a newsy lead is the lead that goes with an inverted pyramid style article. And I would say 80% of news articles are written in a newsy lead. Lead with the news. Just put the most important information up front. And usually this is going to include the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. That's going to be the most important thing that you can do, is put those up there. If you have time to put how, then you can include that as well. But this is the most important information. And remember that timeliness is a very important news value to journalism. It distinguishes journalism from history because of its timeliness, right? So we want to make sure that we include the time, why it matters. All right, the next one is about Ukraine. It's a little bit difficult, so I'm going to give a trigger warning. But this is a very good example that I pulled on Friday morning of current news that was using a newsy lead, which indicates an inverted pyramid style article. Ukrainian authorities began unearthing bodies Friday from a mass burial site in a forest recaptured from Russian forces, including some that they said bore signs of torture. Okay, who? Ukrainian authorities did what? Began unearthing bodies Friday from a mass burial. Began unearthing bodies when? Friday. Where? From a mass burial site in a forest recaptured by Russian forces. Why does it matter? It matters because some of them bore signs of torture, which is indicative of a larger issue, right? Perfect. Here is another example. The flood of grief from the death of Queen Elizabeth II forced the British government to call a temporary halt to people joining a miles-long line to file past her coffin as it lay in state Friday, hours before King Charles III and his siblings were to stand vigil in historic Westminster Hall. Who? The British government did what? They had to call a temporary halt to people joining the line for the coffin. When? On Friday. Where? At Westminster Hall. Why? Why was it such a big issue? Because there's a flood of grief after the death of Queen Elizabeth. All of those information is all the way at the top. When you write your lead, you want to also put the most important information at the front. Okay. So for example, a fire destroyed a house on 2nd Street early Monday morning, right? So a house was destroyed by a fire. Great. Put that all the way up there. You wouldn't want to say something like firefighters said a fire destroyed a house on Main Street early Monday morning, because firefighters said is not the important thing. The most important thing is that a fire destroyed a house. So prioritize the most important information early. If there is a who, tell us who it is. But if that person who the story is about or who's doing the action is unknown to your audience, describe who they are, right? So you might say, the police chief, or you might say Mercer's administration, right? Because we might not know the name. So for example, an elderly Macon man died Monday. when an early morning fire raged through his 2nd Street home, right? So if we don't know the person, tell us about the person to have an impact. And then later on in the story, we will find their identity. If it's a person we do know, like the mayor, tell us that it's the mayor, right? If it's a person who has news value because of who they are, let us know who they are. And then if you do have to include an attribution, usually that attribution is going to be at the end of a sentence. So faulty wiring most likely sparked the blaze that claimed the life of an elderly Macon man last week. The city's arson investigator concluded on Monday, right? So include that attribution later. Don't begin with the attribution because we want to hook people and pull them in with the most important information. And then this helps you just really visualize most important information at the top, the next most important information, and then the least important details at the bottom. So this is all available on Canvas. Go ahead and look at it. I also included this story about President Lincoln being shot is available on Canvas and is largely accepted as the first style of inverted pyramid, which is really interesting. Okay. So those are examples of inverted pyramid style. Why is this style useful? It's useful because when wire services print articles, the publications that want to use that article might not have the space to publish the entire article. So in inverted pyramid style, we can cut it off whenever we run out of space. There's no conclusion. The most important information is at the front. So if I only have space to publish the first 4 paragraphs, that's fine. Also, our attention span as readers, right? We don't always want to read the whole story. It helps with search engine optimization. And it also gives the reader autonomy to say, I've got it. I don't want to keep reading. So one more visualization, most important information at the front, less important, and then less important information to the least important information at the bottom. So for you all, a quote that you have that might be interesting, but is kind of tangentially related, put that lower down. But if you have a quote that really indicates what you found in your reporting, put that high up at the top. All right, I'm looking forward to read your inverted pyramid style articles.